late last month, Democrats did something unprecedented in the history of the Senate Judiciary Committee. They blocked the opposing party from speaking on judicial nominees ahead of roll call votes. This was a gross violation of committee rules. It's not something that we generally see take place at the Judiciary Committee. But if you look at the track records of some of these radical far-left nominees, you can see why the Democrat Party does not want these individuals to be up for discussion. Let me give you an example of some of these individuals that have been nominated for the federal bench. Now, bear in mind that an appointment to the federal bench for the district court, for the appellate court, and of course, the Supreme Court, these are lifetime appointments. So the only time that the representative of the people, that the people can be heard pro or con on these nominees is in the committee, is in this chamber, because it is a lifetime appointment. Now, Judge Mustafa Kasabai, he is one of these nominees, and there were several of us on the Republican side of the aisle that wanted to speak about him, but we were blocked from talking about him. The concern that I have with him is Judge Kasabai has actually defended Marxism in his words, in his writings. He has defended Marxism. He has argued against private property rights, and he has called our nation, and I'm quoting him, deeply Islamophobic. That's what he believes. And that is what he has written and talked about. He has also made some deeply disturbing comments about sexuality, women, and rape. For example, he helped promote a radical leftist view that all heterosexual relationships, all, not some, but all, are infused with violence, and that all sexual acts should be viewed as rape. That is his point of view. This appalling argument silences women who have actually been victims of sexual assault. Yet, my colleagues across the aisle, the Democrats, want this man in the courtroom making life and death decisions about women. They want him making decisions about rape and sexual violence. They want him making decisions about property rights when he has spoken out against property rights. And worst of all, Judge Kasabai has shown alarming leniency when it comes to violent criminals. As a prosecutor, he recommended a sentence far below guidelines for a man who drugged, raped, and brutally abused girls as young as 10 years old. Now, he wanted leniency for this guy, for those crimes of drugging, abusing, and raping girls as young as 10-year-old girls. How many of you know a 10-year-old girl? Now, Judge Kasabai didn't just say that because it was one count or two counts. This guy had done this for 15 years. That's what you call a serial perpetrator. 15 years. Think about that one. But no, let's let him off. Let's give him leniency. And let's not protect private property of individuals. Let's not protect women who have been sexually abused. Astounding. Now, Judge Casaby, on that case with the guy that had drug raped and brutally abused girls as young as 10 years old over a 15-year period of time, he wanted just over 10 years in prison for this guy. And he had committed these crimes for 15 years. For 15 years, committed some of the most heinous crimes imaginable against children. And even though this guy's risk of recidivism was very high, Judge Casaby was willing to let him go with 10 years in prison. And I'm telling you, Judge Casaby's track record is disturbing, it's despicable, it is disqualifying. But the thing that probably should disturb each of us is not only is this guy unqualified, so are a host of others. Let me tell you about some of the others that have been up for discussion. Some of these have moved on through the system. There is Nancy Abudu. Now, Nancy Abudu endorsed political violence against conservatives. Go read her Twitter feed. It would be astounding. And she was very involved with the Southern Poverty Law Center. But she supported violence against conservatives, against me. And would you want to go into a court and be in front of a judge who was an activist and supported violence against people? I would think not. There's Todd Edelman. Now, he has been the nominee, and he's there with the D.C. District Court. Todd Edelman used his authority to release a known criminal. This is someone with a record who then went on to participate in the murder of a child. So the guy's got a criminal record, and he gets off, and then he goes on and he participates in the murder of a child. That was a decision from Todd Edelman. Then for the California District, Marion Gaston. She opposed residence restrictions for convicted child sex offenders. So she doesn't even want them to have home confinement. Just let them go. Let them be out there. Or DeAndrea Benjamin over at the Fourth Circuit. She released violent criminals on bond. Well, guess what happened when DeAndrea Benjamin releases them on bond? What happens when violent criminals are let go? They go do it again. Madam President, it is as if this White House does not understand who needs to be on the federal bench. Now, there's another one I want to talk about. Seth Aframe. He is a First Circuit nominee. He's out of New Hampshire. Now, Mr. Aframe's background is something that I think is disqualifying for someone to be on the federal bench. And let me explain why I believe this. Mr. Aframe gave lenient sentences to pedophiles who abused children. Let me give you a couple of examples of this abuse. One was a pedophile that apprehended, kidnapped a 14-year-old girl who was deaf. So he kidnaps, this pedophile kidnaps a 14-year-old girl, and he takes her across the state line into Vermont, and he takes her to an abandoned motel, and he rapes her. This is what the guy did. Now, the second one that he let off, that he went for leniency, was a 3-year-old child that he repeatedly raped. Now, showing you that this pedophile had planned all this out, he befriended the parents of the 3-year-old girl, and then he abused that friendship, and he raped this child. This guy was sick. The sentencing guidelines for each of these two pedophiles and their crimes, the sentencing guidelines called for life in prison. That makes sense. You go out, you kidnap a 14-year-old girl, you take her across state lines, you take her to an abandoned motel, and you rape her, and this is a 14-year-old who is deaf. You take a precious little 3-year-old girl, after you have befriended her parents, knowing you're going to do this because you've got a record, and you rape a 3-year-old child. And then you produce videos of yourself carrying out these crimes. These are sick, sick, sick animals. But no, Mr. A-Frame, he goes for leniency. Instead of going for life in prison, he wanted that sentence lowered. He got his way. Now, here's what he said about the pedophile that had raped the 14-year-old girl who was deaf. Of that pedophile, he said, following his sentencing and giving him the lower sentence, that by the time he got out of prison, he would be over 60 years old, and maybe his desire would have passed. This is sick. Madam President, these people are not qualified, and I am going to continue to talk about these judges that are not qualified. Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the remainder of my remarks be placed separately into the record.